Um, Hello, my name is Brenna McPeak. I am the co-founder and co-editor-in-chief of Fatal Flaw. Thank you all for coming to tonight's virtual showcase. This is our second virtual showcase. We're really excited to have an amazing group of poets, prose writers, and artists here tonight to share their work. We have people from all over, as I know you can see in the chat. We're just really excited to share their work with you. If you have any questions as we go, just put them in the chat and one of our team members will answer them. Please let us know if you have any technical difficulties and we will try our best to solve them for you. But yeah, we're really just excited to get started and to share some really incredible work with you. Feel free, the chat will be open throughout the entire event. And with that, we will get started. All right, so our first presenter tonight is Heather Bourbeau. Heather Bourbeau's poetry and fiction have appeared in 100 Word Story, Alaska Quarterly Review, the Kenyon Review, Meridian, the Stockholm Review of Literature, and SWWIM. She has written in Madagascar, read in Tunisia, and worked in Liberia. While drinking strong tea, she wonders where she will explore next. Her collection, Some Days the Bird, is a poetry conversation with the Irish-Australian poet Anne Casey. Her latest collection, Monarch, is a poetic memoir of overlooked histories from the U.S. West she was raised in. Please welcome Heather.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to be reading a piece of Flash that I have been working on. Echoes when we listen. Saoirse's first memory was of running away from the cracking of her mother's jaw, the anger that if it didn't cool would come to her. She ran to Alfalfa Flats, the dense rainforest behind her house. Here she escaped into the dripping green of the canopy, the melodies of birds in the tall oak, the sounds of small mammals near her feet. When she first found the cattle horn, white with streaks of brown, desiccated and curved, she was only 5 years old. Before the alfalfa ban, before the renewal, cattle roamed this land, but she did not know that yet. She had only known cows as constellations, beings who might still walk other parts of this earth. But she knew that bones could tell stories, the echoes of histories carried deep inside. And so she put the horn to her ear and listened, quieting her breath in anticipation. Under the oak, one hand on the ground, one on the horn, quieting, until she heard the lowing. Kerala was thirsty. He was always thirsty, slowly moving through the Tulare heat. He remembered his mother saying, "Be grateful for the sun. It is more than your uncle knew, more than your grandmother knew." He had lost count of the friends and family that were marched into the large house, never to come out again. Their cries muffled, their bodies gone, unavailable even for the barest ritual of mourning. So he reveled in the sunshine, even as thirst pulled at his throat. He nuzzled his mother, now may she rest, when he could, and found consolation in the lazy company of his fellow inmates. They ate alfalfa and dreamed of water, sharing stories of rivers and rivulets buried in this ground. Sometimes when he was bored, he would scuff the earth, make angry grooves. Once he followed the scent of green, faint but unmistakable, to a young blue oak, too small to offer much shade, and began kicking. He lifted his head now and then to make sure he was not being watched, kick and lift, until he uncovered a collection of tiny teeth, smaller than any he had ever known. Carefully, he knelt to see them better. Not caring any more about the guards, he leaned in, horn to ground, held his breath, and listened. Over the years, Saoirse found company in the canopy horn. After school and after fights, she would pour her pain into its cone and listen for the soft intonations in return. It was a few years before the lowing turned into language she could understand. But when she did, she learned of a dry, flat land, a life filled with family who were kind, and a constant flow of kin to slaughter. In response, she began to share the small joys of beetles on dewdrops, the feel of moss-covered rocks in the cooling streams next to her, and the comfort of his voice in her ear. More and more, Kerala would spend his days in the same small patch, uncovering the earth, listening to the teeth. The afternoon her plaintive cause transformed into words, he felt a rush as he took in her small offerings of kindness, her longing for safety, and her need to be heard. Her world felt magical, verdant, and violent. He could not imagine his ground so fertile, his family so volatile. He wanted to cross whatever divided them and coo a calmness into her soul he did not yet feel himself. If only you could see the road beyond the barbs here, he offered. It is long and leads to another life. One unbearable July afternoon, when sweat does not have time to fall down a face before evaporating into the heat, Kerala found himself under the blue oak now 3 times his size. Kerala had also grown tall and wide and knew this was a blessing and a curse. It had kept him alive longer than most, but he too would be gone when he could no longer labor. He was exhausted, and he began talking to the teeth, hoping the small, soft voice beyond would hear and calm what he could not admit to the others. As he spoke, he rose to his feet, began a slow pace, and felt the frustration, anger, and fear grow inside him. Before he knew it, he had kicked the oak hard, then harder. He was crying at the pain he felt in his bones and the pain he caused in the tree when Saoirse saw the oak above her shake and cut-like markings develop on the trunk well above her head. She gasped, then slowly began to understand. Bending down, Saoirse took 2 rocks, clapped them together, and waited to hear the echo. When the sound came back through the horn, she said in a tone that barely hid her excitement, "Shh, breathe and listen. There is a creek near your oak." And with that, she put her feet into the water that ran alongside the tree and stomped the riverbed with all her might. He strained but could not hear the water move. And just as a bitterness began to rise within, he felt a vague vibration and then hope. "Walk," Kerala urged. "Walk to the rising sun." Laughing, she whispered, dig deep." Thank you.
Yep, I was just talking a lot and on mute. Sorry about that. Our next reader is Eben E. Bein. Eben is a biology teacher turned climate justice educator at the nonprofit Our Climate. He was a 2022 fellow for the Writing by Writers workshop and winner of the 2022 Writers Rising Up Winter Variations Poetry Contest. Their first chapbook, Character Flaws, is forthcoming, and they've published with the likes of Fugue Literary, New Ohio Review, and Columbia Review. They are currently completing their first full collection, From the Top of the Sky, about parent-child estrangement, healing, and love. He lives on Pawtucket land with his husband and can be found online at ebenbein.com. Everyone, let's welcome Eben.
Hi, everybody. Oh, what a treat to follow. Thank you, Heather, for your sharing. I'm going to start my timer so that I'm I don't go over. Just to bring a little bit of engagement, I wanted to say I've potentially 3 short poems to share from an upcoming chapbook. For the second poem, I'd love for this to be a choose your own adventure. So please vote in the chat if you would prefer to hear about a crazy story about a certain pasta shape, or if you would like to hear about a lost high school love. Both of them are very gay. I will just say that, so exciting. But please have your vote in the chat, and I will contemplate that after sharing a poem from this collection that is actually the first poem that I ever published. It's called Half-Built House. It's on a side street, half a facade wrapped in Tyvek paper, embedded in the frozen ground of my new neighborhood, empty A-frame against a gray sky. Is this the door? Or the foyer wall I am stepping through, a screw and washer kicked tinkling into the dirt? I remember when you sat on my lap and designed a house for us in The Sims while I perched my chin on your shoulder, smelled your hair, whispered wallpaper colors, pointed out the light fixtures we would or would not have depending on who won the argument. I can't help imagining your frown at the dirty snow I track across this plywood expanse of perhaps a living room. Shoes were to be always removed upon entering, you had said, as though your very soul flickered in the floorboards of this maybe kitchen with a promise of windows by the staircase to the landing that isn't. This is where our construction stopped. This is where we lay down our tools, where we lay down our bodies to cry and wonder on a foundation that had required all we could muster. I did love that layout. It would have put the children's bedroom right about there, hovering above my head, like a soap bubble by the pin oak's pointing finger. All right. Thank you. And we have very unanimous votes for pasta. So I am really excited. I haven't gotten to read this poem a lot. I'm so happy this happened. This poem is called Catholic with a lowercase c, because I need to keep looking this up, but apparently Catholic lowercase c means of varied tastes. And I always forget that. So anyway, Catholic. It's stupid. Everybody uses elbows when celentani is the mac and cheese pasta shape, like unarguably, like fuck me. Like some little gomitis got freaky deaky in the fromage and mutated into oozing spiral tubes that crisp then slather into perfection. And yet, for years, I swear the 8% of my DNA that is Italian would shout, sell out, each time I tossed a box of celentani into the cart, because I thought it was pronounced sell one Tony, like the Barilla marketing team pulled the shells over our eyes, like our eyes were breasts and the shells were pasties, and my face was a mermaid. And here in America, where the sex is better than the food, we would endlessly ram any old carb into our mouth holes to the tune of millions. Turns out, some worker, and by the way, this is true, verified by Wikipedia, some worker found a broken pasta die at Barilla, squeezing out accidental corkscrews that jiggled like the signature dance moves of 70s Italian rock icon Adriano Sprung Celentano, a story even more delectable than the golden curls of a semolina mermaid, merman, mervaid, or some other toothsome chimera from before fig leaves were in. Now, I'm barely Italian, and Celentano is queer, but I declare Celentani, creamed ambrosia, manifest hankering for a mythic epic of sex, pasta, and rock and roll, so goddamn Catholic that mutants are the golden mean, and craving for any body is as indisputable, as gratifying as the best damn tube to ever loop in, then out, and again, in, then out of the cheese. I'm seeing that we're at 5 minutes, so I actually didn't get to my final poem, but it was a pleasure reading for you all, and thank you so much. The new chapbook is called Character Flaws, and will be released in the next month. Thanks.
Okay, that was so phenomenal that I want to hear the next poem, but another time. And I am so excited. So I'm Molly. I am the visual, excuse me, the visual art editor for Fatal Flaw. And I'm excited to introduce and let you all meet virtually, at least, Adit Deshmukh. So let me read a little bit about Adit and let him get to his visuals. Adit Deshmukh is a New York City-based photographer and product manager. His images capture the interplay between light and shadow and emotion and composition in the streets of Manhattan and Mumbai, in the faces of family and strangers, and in the fields of Iceland and the Midwest. Adit has had shows in Chicago and New York, and his work has appeared in various print publications, including Beyond Words Literary Magazine, Ponder Review, Burning World Literary Journal, and Digging Press. Adit has spoken at Pepperdine University's Seaver College on using visual content in marketing and PR campaigns. Most recently, his photography was featured in a group show at the Cusp Gallery in Provincetown. And you can see more of his work on his website. We'll give you links to that. So the work he's going to be showing us tonight is called The Heart of Winter.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for that great introduction. It's really great to be back in with Fatal Flaw presenting. I'm a huge fan of this magazine. I think it's really, really wonderful. So thank you for having me again. The work I'm going to show you, I took over this last winter. And what I wanted to do is basically capture, I hate when it gets cold. I hate when it snows. I hate that the sun never shines in the wintertime. So I really wanted to capture how the winter months make me feel. And technically, the way I captured these images was trying to go back to the way really high-speed film would capture images in a low light. So like an ISO of a 1600, 3200 speed film. So I was looking for that really sort of grainy, that grainy look with lots of artifacts in the images. But at the same time, I wanted to capture the coldness, the frost, just the terrible way I feel in the wintertime because of the lack of sun, the short days. And I try to focus on nature and the way the earth basically withers during the winter. So I'm gonna take you guys through these images. I'm gonna let them speak for themselves. This first one was taken in rural Illinois. And this is one of the few times where the sun was burning up the fog in the morning, and it basically just just captures the essence of how the sun is really overpowered and overwhelmed during the winter months. Next slide, please. This picture, I wanted to sort of capture what a high-speed film would look like. You could see the grain and the artifacts in the image itself. And once again, this was captured in the middle of the day, and it just really gives you a really bleak sort of scene where the trees are wilting and they're bending to one side. Everything is covered in white, and it's a very stark and sort of desolate, scene. Next slide, please. This was taken at night, somewhere around the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. And this is one of those images where I captured out of the corner of my eye. I had to actually pull my car over, go into this this empty parking lot of a state-run retirement facility. And it took me about 20 minutes to move my car around into the right position, where I could capture that light hitting that branch in that way that provides sort of a canopy, and how the wetness and the frost off the grass and the tar on the pavement reflects the light back up. Yeah, I really like this, and it was just completely by chance. Next slide, please. This is Route 47. My niece is on the call, and she'll recognize this road because we've traveled up and down it many times. And this was again taken in the winter, in the late evening. And what strikes me about this picture is you really can't tell, you can't really attach a date or time or year to this. This could be today. It could also be 75 years ago. And I really like capturing images that are timeless in that way, that are fluid and could span many, many years. There's really nothing in this image that gives away when it was taken. Next slide, please. I did a few of these using trees and the silhouette that the shapes of empty, barren branches provide against either the sun or the winter sky. I think it's a very beautiful yet haunting visual concept. And so this was one of those images. And again, this was taken in the late afternoon, and you could see the sun really just trying hard to penetrate the clouds and the frost. Next slide, please. This is a little different. This I took in New York City, as the sun was trying to burn through some clouds. This is a church in Greenwich Village, and just the way the light sort of hits the steeple and the cross of that church, it's one of those things where I did a double take, and I captured it with my phone before the wind sort of ruined this composition. But yeah, it really just hit me like super hard. And so that's what you're seeing here. Next slide, please. This was taken not recently. This was taken several years ago, also in the month of January, off the coast of southern England. And this just really conveys to me the feeling of coldness, frost, and just the emptiness and the eternalness of the ocean. And that lighthouse is just such an isolated point of reference that's on the right side of the image. And you just feel like you could just get lost in the horizon, which, as you can see, is really undefined because it sort of gets lost in the fogginess of this image. And it's such a typical image of something you'd see in the southern part of England at this time of year. And it's just something that really spoke to me when I saw it. Next slide, please. Again, this is going back to the shapes that treeless branches make against winter skies. This, I believe, was taken in New York City. And they almost look like veins. They look like spider veins that would sprout off from your heart with the capillaries. And I think images like this are, all you have to do is look up and you could see something that's really quite stunning. And I've created a series of these. This is one of the stronger pieces that I wanted to share with everyone. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, that's it. I hope I didn't go over time. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share these images with you all. And I look forward to doing this again. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Adit. That was great.
Thanks, Adit. Yeah, as someone who also definitely suffers from seasonal depression and that lonesomeness that winter evokes, I can really connect with that series. So our next reader is Moni Brar. Moni was born in rural India and raised in northern British Columbia on the land of the Tuskegee peoples. She has multiple nominations for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net, and was the recipient of the 2022 Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal and the 2022 Lieutenant Governor of Alberta Emerging Artist Award. A finalist for the Montreal International Poetry Prize, she has received writing awards from Prism, Grain, Room, The Fiddlehead, and The Ex-Puritan. Her work appears in Best Canadian Poetry, the Literary Review of Canada, Hobart, and elsewhere. She believes art contains the possibility of healing. Welcome, Oni.
Thank you so much for the introduction and the invitation to read here tonight. I'm so excited to be here. So I have the privilege of living as an immigrant and an uninvited settler on the stolen lands from the people of Treaty 7 region here, what is now colonially known as Calgary. So I recognize that often at these types of events, there is an absence of Indigenous voices. So I'd like to create some space for these important voices and stories. So I'd actually like to begin by reading a couple of short poems from Indigenous poets. So the first one is a poem written by Randy Lundy. He's a member of the Barren Lands First Nation in Manitoba. And this piece is called My Touch. A dance of birds' feet across wind-smoothed snow. Your flesh snows no sign, no hieroglyph of descended flight, but the occasional stain of blood betrays the path of mouth or hand, as if spring has awakened in some lazy neighborhood cat, a sudden new awareness of teeth and claws. This next piece is from Sturgeon, and it's written by Anishinaabe poet Kateri Ekiwenza Dam. I twist and gasp, open and close my mouth, searching for air. Whenever a sturgeon is caught in the rainy river, I know the feel of strange hands touching my body, the struggle to be free. That is why I do not eat sturgeon, because I know when a sturgeon is caught in the rainy river, I am a sturgeon and I dangle on hooks. So I'd like to read a couple of my own poems now. So the first one, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about land and loss and what it means to live on stolen lands. So in Canada, we've been spending a lot of time the last few years in truth and reconciliation. So this poem is a reflection on those themes, and it's called Before Dispossession, There Was Just Soil.
These agreements, making them the most advanced Duracell batteries ever, with the power of Duracell in your devices.
I'm hearing some interference there. So, sorry, Julie. Yeah.
If everyone could please mute their microphones, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. So this poem, sorry, it's called Before Dispossession, There Was Just Soil. And it starts with a quote by Chief Robert Joseph, who says, reconciliation includes anyone with an open mind and an open heart who is willing to look into the future with a new way. What if this land was not laced with rose, not fraught with trellised vines? What if this torn surface was not coaxed into offering fruit or the dying, sweetness or splendor? What if it was meant only to support a hoof or the indent of a crow's foot, not a mouth tamped with transgressions? What if the soil heaved itself into your hands and the sky laughed out loud at this infestation of bees, infectious as the feeble cause echoing off clouds? The fragility of anemone blooming white as dawn as ever. What if we knew we were never good at survival, knew too well this land could never be conquered, this land throbbing with endless haptic feedback, plants as placeholders for the grip and grind of time, surface as membrane, body as loam, punctured with wild flocks growing new eyes. A tree, a rock, a segment of icons in sky, settling no truth in place. The last piece I'm going to read to you is about partition. So if you're not familiar, when the British withdrew from the subcontinent, they drew a line through it and they created two countries, India and Pakistan. So 18 million people were forced to migrate and over 3 million people perished at that time. So both of my parents lived through this. So I do write about this quite a bit in my poetry because these effects, they're still felt today. So this line of partition, it was drawn by a man named Sir Cyril Radcliffe, a British man, and he wrote, "This is what I'll be remembered for, the Radcliffe line. I drew them a line. This was one country, one heart cut into two." And this poem is called, "It is not a line." It is 1947. It is not the beginning. It is a figment of one man's imagination. It is not a secret. It is a death sentence to millions. It is not a cartographer's mistake. It is a red line on a map. It is not rigid. It is a demarcation. It is not pomp nor circumstance. It is decision-making power. It is not a lapse of judgment. It is shrewd. It is not independence. It is etched in skin. It is not a jewel. It is chaos. It is politic. It is not magic. It is a swollen belly. It is knocking on wood. It is not just. It is a hand. It is a throat. It is gunmetal sky. It is hegemony posing as benevolence. It is dry heels and monsoon mouths. It is afloat. It is preening. It is not a lament. It is a time and place. It is not a forest. It is a jungle. It is saffron. It is the swelter. It is dripping. It is not a moonless sky. It is a billow of cotton. It is sepia and turmeric. It is a mango pit. It is ripe. It is a Punjabi woman milking a water buffalo. It is her daughter's looped braids. It is not a line. It is not a temple. It is my mother. Thank you so much for listening.
Up next, we have David Samuel Hudson. David is actually in Malta, so he sent us in a recording of his reading. I'm going to introduce him and then play the recording. David Samuel Hudson is a Maltese author. He is the recipient of a distinction in creative writing He is the recipient of a distinction in a creative writing master's degree from Bath Spa University, where his novel manuscript was shortlisted for the Janklow and Nesbitt Prize. As a journalist, he was awarded the National Journalism Prize for his investigative work. He was chosen as a National Book Prize adjudicator in 2020. He previously worked as an English teacher, copy editor, and translator. He is currently working as an administrator and content writer at the University of Malta. His fiction has won prizes in the United Kingdom and the United States and has been featured on Business Weekly, NPR, and the Chicago Review of Books. He is currently working on his novel debut. Please welcome virtually David.
Hi, I'm David Hudson. First of all, I'd like to thank Fatal Flaw for this wonderful opportunity. I mean, I come from Malta, which is a tiny island of the Mediterranean Sea, in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and there aren't any opportunities in Malta, both in terms of...
Apologies.
Thank Fatal Flaw for this wonderful opportunity. I mean, I come from Malta, which is a tiny island of the Mediterranean Sea, in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and there aren't any opportunities in Malta, both in terms of publishing and in terms of outreach. So I'm very grateful for literary platforms like this one, which showcase a small writer's work from a small community. In Malta, we have two official languages. One of them is Maltese and one of them is English. The other is English. And I bet it's strange to a lot of people that we're fluent in English, but then our literature in English and translated is invisible to the world. And I hope this changes. Fatal Flaw published my story, Shape in the Rust, quite a long time ago, and in the inaugural edition. So I thought I'd read something new, something which is more reflective of the writer I am now. This is from my upcoming novel, M, debut novel, M. And what I'm going to read is very much concerned with the bilingualism I mentioned and the Maltese struggle of the artist. I hope you like it. We used to meet at Summer's Gardens, but someone always complained about the heat or the rain, the mosquitoes or the honeydew falling from the trees. And then when dusk fell, when the lampposts were lit and we were conversing more loosely, the security guard came to tell us that it was time to leave, and so we did. This is why we started meeting indoors. I walked past the guardrail into our meeting place, knowing that I was the best writer in the group. I wanted to be a writer. I needed to be a writer. This hunger is what separates me from the rest of them. Even if one of them had written the best line he could or she could, I wouldn't have encouraged it because I knew they wouldn't have kept it up for long. But I could. I was the reason the group even existed. We called ourselves the English. At least that was the title of our messenger chat. I liked being late to our meetings. I saw the others first through the coffee shop windows, which meant that neither of them would catch me by surprise. It also meant that I was making an entrance. Valeria would have to look at me. I walked in while observing the other patrons in the coffee shop, knowing that the group's eyes were on me. This made me seem like I was someone who always had something or other going on. But the truth was that the group was my only true concern, especially the dark-haired poet, who I thought was far superior than the rest of them. I sat down on the empty seat next to her. Valeria smiled, though she did not look at me. Wasal el bossa, Jorgen said. In English, Rupert said. In English, damn you, Paulo said. I glared at them, but only half serious as I took my notebooks out of my bag. Lindsay, sitting across from me, looked up from her phone momentarily to look at my stationery. She liked my journal. She'd commented on all the journals I brought with me before and had asked me where I got them from. She was more interested in the covers than what was inside. Paulo sucked on his e-cigarette and slid even lower in his seat as if it weren't cool to resist gravity. He insisted on being called by the Maltese version of his name. I admit that Paul didn't suit him. There was nothing English about him, even though he was disdainful of anything purely Maltese. But he liked to curse in his native language, which, according to him, was an art that didn't make sense resisting. I didn't like Paulo. He was full of himself, and his mediocrity in writing and otherwise was even more obvious because of how blind to it he was. When we used to meet in Summer's Gardens, Paulo was the one who always pretended being unfazed by rain, sun, mosquitoes, honeydew, hornets, but who was the first to agree with relief with someone else's suggestion that we should relocate. In English, damn you, I said, would make a perfect first line to a great Maltese novel written in English. Paulo's eyes scanned me for irony. He wanted to make sure I was being serious before he could sit up straight and put out his chest like a flashing neon sign. And with that, I said, let's discuss introductions today. Introductions are tricky. I met Paulo at uni and I immediately disliked him because of what he was wearing. Baggy yoga trousers and an oriental print shirt with the first 4 buttons undone so that I could see the little hollow in the middle of his chest. My own sunken chest made me feel self-conscious and frail, but in his dark skin it was alluring. He was naturally handsome. He had a sharp, symmetrical face and the head of tight curls, which I envied. I had to work hard at looking decent. I had to gel my hair for me to feel confident. He once said that I was lucky to have straight hair, but he said it in such a way that he wasn't being critical of his own style, which made his hardly a compliment seem disingenuous. My hair was wickedly unruly. The wind did all sorts of silly things with it, and when it wasn't wet or gelled, it sat on my hair like a toupee. I kept looking at him when I first met him, trying to find faults. We were the first to show up to a creative writing class. The tutor hadn't come in yet. Paolo had taken a seat in the back row of the lecture room, and I took a seat in the same row. So, he said, am I a poet or a prose writer? Poet, I said. Why? Many reasons, I thought, but didn't say out loud. Judging by what he was wearing, he liked to stand out. Poets are more performative than prose writers, and the former are more distinctive. Someone is more likely to raise their eyebrows at you if you say you're a poet, as if you've just declared a belief in unicorns. It's more lofty, less lucrative. Paolo didn't strike me as patient enough to finish a whole novel or even a collection of short stories. And lastly, he seemed like the kind of person who would do the least amount of work possible in exchange for a mild amount of celebrity. That's not to say that poets don't sometimes have as hard a time as prose writers, but nobody could convince me that it's easier to finish a sound novel than it is to complete a decent collection of poems. But, as I said, introductions are tricky. They're often full of lies to lure someone in, to make people like you, to make them read you. So instead of saying all of that to Paolo, I just shrugged and said, I don't know. I write prose, Paolo said, and so do you. How can you tell? You're reading a novel, he said, gesturing to Salman Rushdie in my hand. I bet he had his own critical reasons for why he thought I was a prose writer, but noticing Midnight's Children had been a good friend. Paolo had his laptop open on his lap. On the screen was the Facebook page of a girl who I thought looked familiar. She's supposed to be in this class, he said. It's the only reason I signed up. Oh, so you're not actually a prose writer then? No, I am, he said. I just don't think I need this unit. He said it so casually, as if we were speaking about routine breakfast, that made me think that he had a reason to be so confident. I wanted to see his writing. If you are better than me at writing, then I wanted to be his friend, secretly his enemy. Show me your writing, I said. You'll see it in class. Once, we went to get lunch after the lecture. I noticed that Paolo had dried paint on his fingers. It made sense to me that he was a painter too. You paint? I asked. He looked down at his fingers and shook his head. No, he said, but it looks cool. I paste acrylic on my fingers every time I go out. Doesn't it make me look sophisticated? You mean worldly? I said. Why are you so obsessed with speaking correct English all the time? You put paint on your fingers, I said. Paolo sighed. He looked vulnerable for a moment. His dark eyebrows seemed to slide down to his cheeks, and for the first time he looked more cute than pretty. I almost wanted to squeeze his hand. It's easy to be an artist in Malta, he said. You express yourself, and that's it, you're an artist. Well, it shouldn't be about being an artist, I said. It should be about the art. If it's good, good. If not, then it doesn't matter if people still think you're an artist. Paolo kept up his concern for a moment longer, but then he smirked, like he'd decided to ignore my statement and wallow in a chaos that could not be contained. The light of the coffee shop was dim and yellow, and his rows of white teeth looked villainous in his bronzy face. It is about being an artist, he said. Then you can do and write whatever you want, but first, you have to be somebody. He raised his fingers off the table, his acrylic tips proving his point. You thought I paint. But you don't, I said. Paolo shrugged, but it made you ask. I kept thinking about this conversation as I drove home. I looked at the politicians' faces on the billboards along the bypass. Big, glowing, smiling faces with lines of text beside them, trying to hide the furnace-like apartment buildings being erected by the road. Artifice. Lies. I could never write a good introduction because I wasn't quite capable of lies or luring someone in. I was mostly dishonest by omission, but introductions require a start, a willful setting down of a scene, of words. After meeting Paolo, I decided to be more proactive. When I got home, I looked up the online profile of the girl who was supposed to sit in on the creative writing unit but never did. I sent her a friend request. Thank you. I hope you liked it, and thanks again for such a wonderful opportunity. This was great. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, that was great, and I've never seen that done before with a recording, so that worked beautifully. I'm really happy we got to hear from him. I am thrilled to introduce Drea the artist, as she goes by. So Andrea Benson is a multifaceted creative based in Houston, Texas. Her work uses vibrant colors and surreal compositions to explore the connection between spirituality, nature, and the human form. On top of her life as an artist, she guides meditation experiences in nature, has music on all streaming platforms, and teaches art at the middle school level. Curated and participated in local and regional art shows, and continues to engage the community through thoughtful conversations and creative activations. Please welcome Drea the artist.
Hello, 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 beautiful people. Hope y'all are having an amazing time all over the world. It is, like she said, I'm in Houston, Texas. So I'm sitting out on my patio. It's nighttime after a day of rain. But thank you guys for being here. I'm glad to be a visual artist, a part of these presentations. So this very first painting that is up is a self-portrait that I did of myself, I think in 2019. And my initial idea was to be underwater and kind of have my face coming out. And this is what I ended up with. I'm a type of artist where I might start with a solid idea, but then that's kind of just like the structure. So I had the structure of this picture, but I had no idea what the colors would be like. And so I'm really about balance. And I, in my artwork, balance is carried through. So if you look at just those oranges, the greens, how many leaves I have, the line that's coming out of the third eye area, that's actually what the inside of eye looks like. But again, all of those lines balance out the one line in my eye. So a lot of times I don't necessarily have this huge meaning. I'm just thinking about balance. You can go to the next painting. That last one was a 36 by 48 painting, so it's pretty big. This is a 36 by 36 paper collage. So it's a lot of different pieces of paper. And kind of, the structure that I got for this picture was, I just wanted to show the different layers of consciousness. So where you see the big eye, that is where your conscious mind is, what you see. And then it flows down into, at the very bottom, that is the subconscious. So that's why it's kind of dark. If you look at each level, there's either a waterfall or a stream or something that goes. Even on that second layer, if you look between the green and the blue on the right, that's actually a watermelon with one of the rivers coming out of it. But again, it's just about messages being passed through the different levels of consciousness that you have between you and your spirit. And I called this one As Above, So Below. So that one took me over a month. Again, those are all little pieces of paper, a 3 foot by 3 foot. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I have these comments open. I love the engagement. Thank you guys. You can go to the next one. All right, so this is a 36 by 48, so 3 foot by 4 foot painting that I did of Erykah Badu. Normally, I actually don't paint celebrities because I don't like to follow the hype, but Erykah Badu is pretty special. And at the time I did this, when I found out I had COVID. So again, as I said earlier, I am a teacher. So I was at school, left. As soon as I got the news I had COVID, I literally went and started on this painting. This is another one where I had my basic idea figured out, that I wanted her face from that cover, from the photo shoot that she did. But from there, like all of the colors, especially kind of at the top where the bright red is, like those were split-second decisions. But I'm the type of artist where if I don't know what I'm gonna do next, I'm not doing anything. So I have different paintings that I haven't touched, for months at a time, just because I don't know what to do. But when I do get that inspiration, it's done whether I understand it or not. Yeah, she's definitely an exception. So this one is a mix of acrylic paint and paper collage. So like her bracelet area, that's paper collage. The end of her fingers, those are paper. The sun area, you know, with the purples, those are paper, and then the green in front of her. And kind of the different areas that I have in front of her face was just, again, as an artist, Erykah Badu inspires me, not just as an artist, but as a creative, spiritual person. You know, so she is spreading her energy through her mouth, through her voice. So that's why I have that light blue coming from there. I have light blue coming from her third eye area because her vision, she is manifesting on this earth. And then kind of on the eyes again, her vision, not just in the spiritual sense, but just what she sees for herself. Like she, you know, she is showing everyone that, but everything behind her head is the unseen. That's what you don't see. That's the creative messages, the spiritual work that you don't see being done. We just see kind of, you know, what's on the outside. But yeah, I also didn't pay attention to what time I started. So if I go too long, just somebody stop, please. But you can go to the next painting. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're good. You got plenty of time. Yeah.
Okay. So this one is called The Temple. I think I either had a dream about this or I was meditating, but it's like I just saw a lot of different shades of blue. Blue is my favorite color, but like the shades I got almost like imagine an ocean, but like it's just this blue that's so rich that, you know, I can't really replicate. But I use the same shade of blue and everything just because it does kind of, you know, touch the blue that I saw. But here it's just our bodies are our temples. And I do paint a lot of naked people. I don't think I've shown any naked people. I don't think I have anybody on this slide that's naked. But normally when I paint naked people, I don't use their heads. Sometimes because I actually model for my own pieces, and other times I feel like people can embody the painting easier if it doesn't have a face on it, you know, because that body can literally be anybody's body. But you know, in the stained glass area, or I use stained glass just because again it reminds me of a temple. And so even my home I call my temple. Like everything is a temple. Wherever my energy is present, it's a temple. And so again, this one is just showing your body is a temple, and a lot of times in that space it's just you. Nobody can go in those deep places. You are the temple. You are sitting with yourself. And so, yeah, that's what this painting is about. I sold it and I totally regret it because I miss looking at this painting all the time. But yep, you can go to the next one. This may or may not be the last one, I'm not sure. So this one is actually a bit older. I did this in 2017, no, 2018. At the time, it was a couple months after I had just graduated college. And I was working in an art studio, but I feel like this was a huge time of self-discovery, like, you know, a very vital time just in terms of the decisions I've made to become the person that I am now. But I call this painting Tree of Life, and this is another self-portrait. And I forget what type of tree I looked up for this. I don't think it's a sequoia tree. Maybe if one of y'all look at the roots, you can notice what that is. I have no idea, but it's the curvy roots. You know, I really liked those. And then the background, I imagine that like as my energy, but I feel like it can look like a lot of different things. Banyan tree, banyan, that totally looks like the name. That feels like it's the right thing. Thank you for that. But if you haven't noticed, in all of my paintings, I feel like my paintings are a representation of me and not just Drea, but the spirit that speaks through her. And so I'm very vibrant. That's why in all the colors that you see, like I use very raw colors. You know, I don't like to dim colors down, just because I like the vibrancy of just pure color. I use nature and everything, because again, the patterns, the lines that you see that kind of carries through all of my work, those are the patterns that you see in your hands, your veins, tree branches, lightning strikes, streams. It's life itself. So with my work, you know, I strive to just show the power of life, and that can mean so many different things to so many people. But again, I feel like the colors and the imagery, you know, carries itself. So I think that's the last one. As she mentioned, I do have music that I make. I make meditation music that you can find on any platform. If you search Drea the Artist, And yeah, I would love to connect with you guys, but thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Dre. It was really wonderful to hear you explaining your creative process and the inspiration behind those pieces. You have a very powerful and clear artistic voice. So our next reader is Jen Kratnick, the winner of the 2022 Cider Press Review Book Award for Inheritance with a High Error Rate. Jen is the author of 10 additional poetry collections, including the chapbook What Forges Us Steel, the Judge Judy poems, and the 2021 SIPA Evie Gold Medal winner, The Burning Where Breath Used to Be. Her work has won the Ty Ferret Writing Contest for Poetry, Split Rock Review Chapbook Competition, Hart Crane Memorial Prize, and Anna Davidson Rosenberg Prize, among other honors, and received fellowships from the Vermont Studio Center, Wild Acres Retreat, Mother's Milk Artist Residency, Artists in Residence in the Everglades, and elsewhere. The co-founder and managing editor of SWWIM Every Day, she has recent or forthcoming work in the American Poetry Review, Cold Mountain Review, Missouri Review Poem of the Week, Notre Dame Review, Shenandoah, South Dakota Review, and Tar River Poetry. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here. And such an honor to see all of this fabulous work and listen to all of you. It's been an incredible evening. I'm going to read the poem that I published in Fatal Flaw, which I wasn't going to at first because it was written very early during the pandemic. And then I realized that it's still true today. So I thought I would share it. And then I'm going to close with the last poem in the book of that's in my forthcoming book. So the first poem is actually a reverse abecedarian. So the first line starts with Z and the last line ends with A. And it's about the fear of not seeing my parents again, because I live in Florida and they live in New Jersey, which I think we all had that fear of like not seeing our loved ones when we didn't realize what was happening. But I still live in Florida and they still live in New Jersey, and now they're 89 and 85. And I think that fear is kind of like, it's just always going to be there, which is why it's still true. So this is called Superstition. Zabar's bagels and signature sourdough rye on the table, unyielding bricks for the corned beef, pastrami, lox sliced as thin as x-rays, salty rims of salmon countering the smears of cream cheese. Washing our hands without blessings, we ate like raccoons from this vibraphone of commonality, the tribe demonstrating our usual uncouth rituals. The sour cotton of masked mouth sticks to my untended tongue now, but I can still taste the immaculate anise of caraway steeds, feel them pricking the gums between my molars. There is good reason to fear that this sense memory will be all that I have left to quantify our relationship, or that it sums us up, that we've a family punctuated by emotive meals instead of words, communicating without anything besides compliments to the chef. Recently, my daughter noticed that I never say, "I love you," when I hang up after phoning my mother or father. Those words aren't uttered on the other end of the line either, and rarely have been. Although sometimes after a serrated, knife-worded argument, they're a gift of solace or relief. I can't justify how our voices done into the color of propriety when I speak with them. Eggshell white walls you shouldn't touch, pristine housewares catalog, even as my mother loosens the fist of convention's grip, marveling out loud at former family secrets, my once silent father no longer wanting to end a conversation. "Tell me," he says, "what else?" At this distance, we can't keep our mouths filled with food. What diamond after diamond of air molecules will we fall through if we consider a different kind of verbal leave-taking? I think about these goodbyes as if they are wills that were always meant to be written, but weren't, afraid that if we confess to love now, it will be the spell that breaks us. This second poem is the first poem that I wrote in my new house, which is no longer new, but we still haven't unpacked fully because we moved in 3 months before the pandemic and we're just really lazy. So let's just be honest about that. It's a villanelle. It's called Birkat Habayit, which means welcome home in Hebrew. And the first line is sort of also the title. It's called A Woman is a Bird When. A woman is a bird when, wood under feet, dressed in flower parts. She surveys her private garden, ragtag, everything in it equal to her heart. Downsize, they tell her, it's only a start. Learn to bolster what's beginning to sag. Wood under feet, dressed in flower parts. A woman is a thorn, poisonous dart. Planes fly away from the kite of her back, everything in them equal to her heart. Convertibles, accordion, roofs hard. Oh, to feel again the pain of the egg. Wood under feet, dressed in flower parts. A woman goes rogue, winging wide apart, her flock caught in a current of jet lag. Everything in it equal to her heart. One eye doll wide, one squinting and alert. She talons her home like a prized handbag, wood under feet, dressed in flower parts, everything in it equal to her heart. Thank you so much for listening. It was really a pleasure to be here.
All right, up next, we have Sean Ennis. Sean Ennis is the author of Chase Us Stories, published by Little A, and Cunning, Baffling, Powerful, published by 30 West. He lives in Mississippi, where he is the director of a software development boot camp. More of his work can be found at seanennis.net. Everyone, please welcome Sean.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for being here, and thank you Fatal Flaw for putting this on. This is cool. I don't know if it's getting late, so I'll try to be quick. The first piece I'm going to read was the one that Fatal Flaw took, so I thought that was appropriate. This is called "This Is What We Trained For, People." Is this all because I was caught masturbating as a kid? I think not. I refuse the trauma. The world's best restaurant is closing, and I've never even been there or heard of it. I'm learning the personalities of the board members, and they have their own problems. There's a point I'm trying to make, but I'm on vacation. Zoning out at the Hornets game, and Charlotte doesn't have love for its team. I'm here for slam dunks, but the DJ won't quit, and I can't hear the players' sneakers squeaking. He's playing It's Raining Men, my mother's favorite song. He's playing the 1812 Overture. He's playing every song called Money, and there's a lot. There is a man, though one is tempted to say child, absolutely losing it over a fried chicken sandwich in the concourse. He did not get his way, or his way didn't come fast enough. The world, we learned, revolved around him. Here, we thought it spun about us. I have this look I can give that means something like drop dead, and I do give it to him. It's 2 days after Christmas, and you can tell that some of the people in this stadium just learned that Santa Claus isn't real. On the train ride home, though, everyone is comparing designer shoes. The passengers are looking good and experiencing fidelity. This is, to some degree, what it's all about. Be honest. Do you watch the game or the scoreboard? Okay, I'll read one more real quick. This is part of my manuscript that will be out through Malarkey Books next year. So this one is called Not Here But Now. The wrens were building a nest above where our cat sleeps at night. To call someone a bird brain is a real insult. So I placed a small mirror in the nest to give them the shock and fear of self-recognition. Some people have ideas about me that are completely wrong. I love that. I don't care that much about money. I like helping people and I can be good at it. Yes, one of the methods is to present people with a mirror. Charlotte was always getting stoned and calling her ex, who was me. I'd answer the phone, though I had no interest in a rekindling. Our history together was typical. What began as charming became repugnant. Her affection for me was maniacal. She also stole $3,500 from my personal savings, which was intended for LASIK eye surgery. But ever since that haunted phase of my marriage, where my wife and I swapped stories about past relationships, Grace has been obsessed with this missing money. In her mind, we were always about $3,000 short of our financial goals. You loved her, Grace says. And I say, if this is love, then that wasn't it. She cried. I cried. We went to the Graduate for appetizers and St. Anthony's Brick Oven for entrees. The next Wednesday, I was home from work for lunch, and I was surprised to find Grace undressed and in bed. Take me, she said. I'm a wounded stegosaur, and you're the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex. She never talked like this. I was still wearing my lanyard with my key card, shocked and intrigued. Charlotte had had a different body type, a different personality, different strengths and weaknesses, different aesthetics, no discernible politics, different turn-ons. For instance, along with the phone calls, she would send pictures. Not selfies, though I think that was the point. Someone else was capturing her at mundane tasks, brushing her teeth, tying a trash bag. Plus, they were not beautiful pictures. I hadn't seen her otherwise in 20 years. I'm not mocking Charlotte. In fact, I'm not mocking anyone. For the sake of some privacy, which I do deserve, I won't say what Charlotte and I discussed. Grace knows. And every Wednesday at lunchtime for about 6 weeks, Grace greeted me in the nude and talking deranged. I'm an imprisoned space princess, and I crave freedom, she said. I'm your high school sweetheart, Rosie Rottencrotch. I was enthused, but only neutral on the chit-chat. Of course, when I look in the mirror, I see a man with no friends. It may or may not be true. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Sean. And thank you again to everyone. We have just one more reader for tonight, and that is Karen Paul Holmes. Karen has 2 poetry books, No Such Thing as Distance and Untying the Knot. Her poems have been featured on the Writer's Almanac, The Slowdown, and Verse Daily. Publications include Diode, Plume, and Prairie Schooner, and she was named a Best Emerging Poet by Stay Thirsty Media. In 2022, Karen was the Tweet Speak Poetry Poet Laureate and a finalist for the Stockholm Review Poetry Prize. And Karen, I wanted to let you know that right now I am sitting right by my own berry by Peace Lily, which I always think of because of your poem. Welcome.
Thank you. That's really funny that you have a peace lily right there. Well, when it gets these awful bugs all over it, you won't love it as much. So that's what this poem is about. It has a long title. Whoever wrote, "Rest assured, a peace lily is not a gift that will become a burden," was wrong. Not its fault, it honored a harpy. The lily thrives despite the sticky honeydew of scales. Brown bugs dot stems and leaf veins, looking like bumps or toasted sesame seeds rather than living things. My fingernail can scrape them off, but there are so many, too many. Twice it took me half an hour, and each time I only saw more, my fingers gummy with bodies and their excretions. Still, chartreuse shoots unfurl into their green, deep green, lanceolate shapes. Sometimes new white flags wave. I call them flowers, though technically spathes. Such an ugly word for something as loving as surrender. The flags tell me to be peaceful with the infliction, with the way the plant was inflicted on me after my partner died, leaving me to do more than babysit this mute, unwanted pet, a gift someone sent him in memory of his mother. He cared for it, though he didn't much care for her, who never stopped scorning him for leaving the church where his dad had brimstoned, the church that cherished guilt meted out by the bushel. Still, the damned son carried her casket. I sat in a small-minded pew, hands in lap, no ring to tie me to her. The one time she and he and I tried to meet, she didn't show. It was too cold outside. Google told me discard a heavily infested plant, but I've tried to honor it these 5 years. Maybe its cruel fate is to cope with insects sucking its essence. I have told the lily I will water, turn it to the light it loves, cut off yellow leaves. I have explained I can no longer tackle stickiness, will not scrub again with mild soapy water each leaf on at least 50 stems. I have a kind nature, but I'm not always kind. Like me, this hardy, forgiving plant will have to fend for itself, knowing some things just won't leave. So that poem was in Fatal Flaw. And I'm going to read one more. It's late, and I thank everybody. This has been really great. I'm happy to be part of it. Thank you to Fatal Flaw, all of you, and all of you who presented. So this is kind of a light/heavy poem. My mother came to the US from Australia to marry my father, who was in the US Navy. And this is a persona poem from the viewpoint of her nightgown. Confessions of an Ugly Nightgown. I'm a nightmare, shapeless silk, the color of overripe peaches, graying lace, pastel smocking. Along with 200 war brides, I sailed from Sydney, a fiance's accomplice, meant to entice her sailor. She couldn't carry family or furniture and thought me pretty, lightweight, essential. I slept among her newly knitted sweaters and embroidered tablecloths. Only once did I hear her fear she could end up like her friend with a coal miner who drank and hit. I must have been a talisman. My girl's Yankee was true, and from under me sprang 7 children. Her daughter hangs on to me, keeps me in a high up box with other vestiges from her mother. In my cool slipperiness, I rouse a sleeping husband who doesn't care how I look. In fact, I'm at my loveliest, heaped on the floor. So that was from my book, No Such Thing as Distance, from Terrapin Books. And once again, thank you so very much. And I meant to say at the beginning of my Peace Lily poem that I am now happily remarried. So even though I'm still stuck with this plant, I do have a wonderful new partner in my life. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for hanging on this evening for the last reader.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. This was just wonderful. We loved having you and hearing you read and showing your work. It was just absolutely fantastic. Just to let you all know, the recording from tonight will be on our website and our very, very new YouTube channel, which we are still working on getting up and going, but it will be available ideally tomorrow. And we will make sure to let you all know when the recording is ready, and we'll send you a link. But yeah, thank you so much. If you're just joining Fatal Flaw for the first time, make sure to check us out on our website, fatalflawlit.com, and on our social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Fatal Flaw Lit. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you to the Fatal Flaw team, and thank you so much to our readers and our artists. We love you and your work.
Incredible.
Please remember to always send us whenever you have something new that you'd like us to promote. We're always happy to help promote your work.
Definitely. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you all. Bye. Thank you.